The USA is threatening the next generation of consoles with a massive tariff. Epic have doubled down on esports with an aggressive hire, plus more with Telltale Games being pulled, Microsoft revealing more about their streaming vision, and an interesting leak from Ubisoft. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another edition of The Roundup, the twice per week show where we get you caught up on the gaming news. Of course, there's another upload on this channel today with today's deep dive, going deep into monetization, how it changes games, the past and the future. But today there's a lot to cover, so let's just get going. The trade war between the United States and China is escalating, with the US proposing a tariff of up to 25% on a huge array of goods, of course, including video game consoles. Now, the geopolitics of this, that's a whole other story. But to put it simply, countries can pressure each other by placing tariffs on imports to damage their, the other country's competitiveness when it comes to trade. This often is used when, negotiating, exerting pressure, and it's typically not something that's massively economically efficient. It is more of a political sort of tool. But politics aside, how does it actually affect games? Well, a 25% import tariff would be significant, as most consoles are assembled and shipped from China. Really, it's up to, various people along the chain to decide how to handle this. It could result in price increases. It could result in, say, Sony eating the cost, which would likely make sales unprofitable. Of course, Microsoft eating the cost, one of the two of them. If this does go through, though, console manufacturers could be facing trouble in the next gen. The PS5 is already facing questions after a analyst focused on Sony from Ace Economic Research Institute revealed that he expects a $499 price point and a November 2020 release. Now, this tariff would increase the cost by 25% on getting them into the country. That, it could be passed on to consumers. If that was happening, you could be looking at $600 for a launch PS5. That's quite expensive, and if the relative failure of the $600 launch PS3, of course, you've got to take inflation into account, but if that's anything to go by, then it could make a large difference for a lot of customers. Now, Sony does have the option to maybe eat that 25% hike themselves and still sell the PS5 for that $500, including the tariff, but given how game consoles are already sold as loss leaders often, they'd likely be unwilling to take that hit. We can't really tell overall what the end user will really have to deal with from this, but one thing is clear: no company is going to laugh off a 25% tariff. Realistically, if this goes through, the customer will end up paying for it in some way. And really, what does it mean for console gamers overall? Well, home consoles do actually have a significant competitor in the works. Streaming. We've got Microsoft's xCloud, Sony's PS Now, and Google Stadia's major platforms. And even thinking about Stadia, it actually has less button-to-pixel latency than a native Xbox One S under good conditions, but of course we would have to see if it was like that when it fully rolls out. But still, Sony's CEO recently said in a strategy meeting this: if you look at the game industry as a whole, the console market is not a major market, rather it's a niche market, if you will. That's what he said. Consoles, a niche market. Regardless of the tariff, if we think about a $500 or $600 PS5, that might be a worse proposition than PS Now in late 2020. It might make more sense for Sony to offer a PS5 controller and a year of maybe a PS Now box or something instead, especially because that would just get you access to the same games anyway. Microsoft could even do the same with xCloud. Sure, you would maybe have lower quality and a bit more latency, but for many of the console gamers, they're not massive enthusiasts, and that could be a strong option. Even though for you and me watching this, the type of people who watch videos like this one, it, might not be a thing we'd be interested in. But do bear in mind that trade wars, they move pretty quickly. We have no idea if this tariff will even exist once the PS5 sales period comes around. That said, there is no doubt that each of the companies will be scrambling to try and work out how to stop this or get around it. With a new console generation on the horizon, there really is no more unfortunate a time for this to happen than really this time. It's a developing story though, I'll keep you up to date, but next, Epic Games. The Overwatch League commissioner, Nate Nanzer, he is stepping down from his role at Activision Blizzard and moving to Epic Games. So, who is Nate? Well, he's a market research exec who has been working in the games industry since the 90s. He joined Blizz in 2014 on consumer research and was put in charge of the OWL at its inception, later becoming its commissioner. Now, what does Commissioner do? Well, basically, they're the highest executive position on the public face of the league. Nate's primary role appears to have been in line with his experience selling the league as an idea, getting investment on board, that kind of thing. And if you look at how glitzy and glamoury and, commercialized the OWL is, it makes sense. and that's also part of why I don't like the OWL. Anyway, his success at a glance seems pretty obvious there, with the OWL having decently high viewership and a lot of investment. However, those who are more skeptical, like myself, note that the OWL has had more than its fair share of issues, few of which have really been addressed publicly by NEUTER. Generally, Activision Blizzard has been in a tough position as of late, with very clear cracks in their business model showing up, diminished portfolio of games, plus the headline-grabbing layoffs. It doesn't seem like a super rewarding, hype place to work at the moment, and prospects are potentially limited for somebody who has massive ambitions in esports. Epic Games, on the other hand, well, they've got Fortnite. They recently purchased Rocket League. They clearly have ambitions for esports, and they have the money to back it up. They then also had an incredibly messy beginning, with Fortnite esports having teething problems that anyone with esports experience could have helped avoid. Stuff like rule changes mid-tournament, impactful bugs, match fixing, and a whole bunch more weighing them down. It's no secret that the Overwatch League isn't really heading for the stars, so for NEUTER, Epic could be a fantastic option, both financially and for his career. We are not really sure what his exact role will be, but we do know that Epic Games are struggling in the actual implementation of their esports. NEUTER, as somebody with market research history, more so than esports history, I mean, for me, it seems like he'll be good at selling the idea of maybe a Fortnite league and getting the investment in, but I mean, for actually running an esports league, to me, he seems like a pretty poor choice. Fortnite's esports problems have really been just to do with them being bad at esports, and I don't think Nate's particularly great at esports, looking at the OWL and a lot of the frustrations that I've heard with people who have to deal with Blizz on it. Of course, that is an outside view. Now, Fortnite esports, it has a lot of potential that does not seem to be met in terms of player engagement, and Rocket League certainly could be a lot bigger, something that I'd say NEUTER's understanding of demographics and marketing could really help Epic with. Now, if he is, the high-profile hire as a part of revamping Epic's approach, then yes, their esports efforts could go very well indeed. However, if they expect the OWL commissioner to come in and save their skin alone, they'll probably be in for a bit of a shock. Saying that, if Epic see the Overwatch League as potential, competition, then this hire is a perfect move from Epic. The public face of the OWL is defecting to a competitor, leaving the OWL high and dry. The show will go on, absolutely, but it does raise questions about what he saw in its future, and if I were one of those multi-million-dollar investors, I'd be asking why the captain jumped ship. It seems like Epic, like with their games store, want to be the undisputed king of the esports hill and are probably just going to pay whatever they need to make it so. The next thing that I want to talk to you about today, though, is the latest Ubisoft leak. So, the Ubisoft Premium Pass has appeared in their store for a brief period of time. It was not available for purchase, there was no associated image, and it was taken down quite quickly. What's the analysis in this? Well, it more or less confirms what I'm sure we all really suspected, that Ubisoft have their own subscription service, and they're probably going to announce it in E3. I mean, the timing here could not be, couldn't be a coincidence. When it comes to Ubisoft, it could be a pretty good deal, to be honest. Each of their games have been well supported into their lives, especially recently, and, they have new games that are being released constantly. They're pretty good at making content, Ubisoft. Usually, when it comes to business models, I, approach them kind of gingerly, with a little bit of suspicion. With this, assuming the price is competitive, it could provide good value. However, you do have to pay for that value somehow. It's probably going to be a copy of Origin, I'd imagine. Over there, you've got Origin Basic and Origin Premier, with that really just changing what games and, just content you have access to. If you have an Ubisoft Pass without Premium, just expect to be kept outside of the current content, or maybe just to only have limited access to it, whereas maybe Premium will be the thing that gets you playing everything. Origin Access has proven to be a good venture for Electronic Arts, though. It's brought in more players into their monetized live services at a lower buy-in, and if we're to be more charitable, it probably has got a lot of people trying games they otherwise wouldn't have because they were included in the subscription. And the same could be said for Ubisoft. Paying $15 to $20 a month for access to a bunch of $60 games a year and all their season passes and all that, for the diehards, it could be pretty decent value. For Ubisoft, it's going to bring more people into the fold, ideally with them going on to spend more money within the likes of Siege, Division 2, and Assassin's Creed. We really are, though, seeing a pattern with subscription services. There are more of them just coming out, and it very much to me indicates that they are profitable if everyone's kind of trying to do one. Generically speaking though, perhaps with the microtransaction backlash, maybe the companies are just trying to diverse their revenue streams. I mean, certainly that's kind of business 101, so it would make a lot of sense. Next though, something that I do find a little bit worrying, Telltale's games are now gone from GOG and some of them are gone from Steam. This raises a few important points that relate to something I've talked about before, game preservation. When games are no longer available to players, we lose them for good sometimes. Now, sure, in many of those cases, there are DRM-free versions that could be distributed, or, there can be preservation efforts made, but there's something else to talk about here, another side to things. IP licensing and ownership, resulting in games being pulled and royalties going unpaid. When a band breaks or dies or whatever, their music is still sold and the royalties are still paid to the songwriters or any, remaining entity involved. That's not the same for games, is it? Like with Telltale. The developers are still alive, the games are still good, they're still valid games, they're still being played by people. However, the systems are not in place to ensure that royalties are actually paid out for those games, so that seems to be a bit tricky. Now, the implementation of that would definitely be a challenge, but it does exist for other forms of creative work that are protected by copyright, so you know what, it should probably exist for games as well. Next, though, Xbox posted an update on Project xCloud Streaming, saying that they are rolling out an alpha to employees for testing. Most of the update was them reaffirming their vision and their goal, which we have covered on this channel before. They then, though, talked about how their xCloud blades are being added to their Azure data centers, allowing for some developers to already test their games without having to port to a new platform, so that's definitely a good thing for the devs. They also do talk about the Xbox backwards compatibility, and that because of that, xCloud is technically capable of playing over 3,500 games. That's a massive win in terms of game availability while xCloud is running, that's for sure, but a nightmare for anyone with an already daunting back catalogue. Next, they did drop a little bit of a flex that the Xbox One has over 1,900 games in development, apparently. That's quite wild sounding, but I guess it's true. The point here, though, is that all of them could run on xCloud, which means that they're also playable on damn near any device you can think of, with just about no additional development work being required. That's pretty insane conceptually, but it is just them hyping up their ability to run a game server and stream a video to a device quickly, so it is worth, tempering your expectations a little bit there. The post did then finish with a tease saying, "We can't wait to invite the community to provide feedback, help us shape it, and participate in development in a very open and transparent way. Stay tuned." That's what they said, so this could be closer than we may realize or expect, and I suppose it does show a great deal of faith in their product. I'm sure many people are suspicious of that, but personally, when new tech is coming along, I'm always interested in new tech, so yes, I am going to be checking it out with a great deal of interest. Now, we're going to finish up here with something that's just a bit funny. Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Not to be mistaken with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare or Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered. I, of course, am talking about Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the new game in 2019. That apparently is going to be revealed on the 30th of May, according to Eurogamer, and their social media channels, the Call of Duty ones, have just went dark, so clearly they're hyping up for something. This seems to be an intended return to Call of Duty's most celebrated era, the early Infinity War games, with them actually also rehiring some of their old staff recently, and some word that the campaign is influenced by No Russian, which was that pretty controversial airport mission from Modern Warfare 2. Personally, I'm excited for this, even if some of that is from a bit of nostalgia. I do find the naming convention to be pretty amusing, though, much like when Tomb Raider, did that back in 2013. There's been a little bit of ridicule, some laughing. More than a few people have pointed out the potential for confusion here with this product stack. That's definitely something, and really it's just kind of ludicrous, I suppose. I mean, certainly for a non-gamer or a parent, it's just not going to make any sense at all. You go into a store and you see Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and then you see Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered, and you're like, which? Obviously Modern Warfare Remastered is the newer one, right? So that's just a little bit stupid, but it still confirms that the era of reboots, whether they are hard or soft, is not going to be leaving us anytime soon. So there we go, that's another episode of The Roundup. But before we go, we do have a Patreon question from Daniel Logan, who asked about getting into games and tech journalism on YouTube, and just any suggestions that I would have. So number one, I would say from a content perspective, you've got to use like what you find interesting as, that's the reason why you get inspired to do it, but you also do need to look at what are the trends, what are people actually interested in, what are they actually watching, what are they doing. You've got to make your work in line with just a realistic view of the landscape. That's super important. You will see that that is part of what we do in this channel, and this has been a successful channel partially because of that. So that's super important in terms of choosing your content. I would also recommend doing scripted content and not just going just not going unscripted, frankly. I think you should use a script that will help you in writing, in data processing. That's actually a really good skill. It'll help you solidify better quality or better thought out opinions, which is super important, and it's actually quite useful in the editing process as well. As for edits, I would just keep them, simple, doing the job. Don't give people reasons to click off your video. A lot of newer YouTubers do that. In terms of video and audio quality, you don't need to do that much. Just audio quality is the most important thing. I'm shooting this on a camera that's, I think, £4,000. You don't need to do that. You can get most of the way there with a webcam that is set up with decent lighting or with a cheap-ish 1080p DSLR. The thing is, though, there is no camera. If you cannot shoot something decently on a webcam or a $300, $400 camera, you're not going to be able to shoot something decently on a far more expensive bit of professional kit. So you want to cut yourself on the basics. That's, I guess, the core of what I would say. Then just look what everyone else is doing. Think about what you like, what you don't like about what they do. Say for me as well, and just actually be honest in comparing yourself to other people. A lot of people get too emotionally attached to their work. That means that they're not critical of their work, and that really means that it's harder for them to improve. And if people ridicule them, they don't understand why, because they just sort of can't take that. So yeah, that's my general thoughts on that topic. Overall, though, good luck. I hope you have fun. And that's that. So thank you very much for watching this video. Be sure to check out today's deep dive, which also went up. And with that, I'll see you next time.